Hello, like Brian said, my name is Andrea Bierer. I am so excited and honored to be here this weekend. Thank you so much for coming to hear about such an important topic, and I really appreciate the opportunity that McLane's giving me to share it. First, I guess I need to set a little bit of groundwork for who I am and what I'm speaking on behalf of. I work at the Mercyhurst University Civic Institute, which runs the prevention portion of UnifiedErie. UnifiedErie is a local violence reduction project here in Erie County, and I have the awesome job of working with it to try and actually prevent problem behaviors in kids. My job is very data and science-based, using that to inform decisions that actually changes behavior. So that is what I do professionally. Professionally, I'm bound by a certain set of rules where I am obligated to do the data justice. So the data that I work with is not specific to one kind of religion or faith. It is just data that identifies organized religion as something that is good for kids. So as we get into the data, I'm going to be using a few words and a few things that I'll have to explain, but I just want you to know in my professional capacity, that is some of the limitations that I'm facing. I'm also here talking to you today as a mom, because like a lot of you, I have kids. And my kids, this is my family. I'm married to the wonderful Doug. Absolutely adore him, don't deserve him. If you see him, pat him on the back and feel bad for him, okay? He puts up with me, love him to death. Danica and John, she's 9, he's 6. They are my heart. I love them, and our household is crazy and nuts and all of those things just like yours. I get it. I got that full-time working mom thing going on, which all of us do, right? And I have that perspective that I want to bring today a little bit. So, you guys mostly came because we told you we were going to talk about kids and religion and the benefits. And so I need to lay some groundwork about how we have gotten the data that we have and what we're going to be talking about today. In the prevention world, there's this model, and we won't go into all the details, but this model that's been proven to work over 30 years, that if a community uses it, they can actually change the outcomes in youth. And it involves this very scientific survey that kids in Erie County have been taking every other year since 2005. And we take that data and we run it through a filter that's been proven to be able to identify what our biggest risk factors are that are leading kids to engage in problem behaviors. And then it also runs it through, and we're able to figure out what are the 3 lacking protective factors. And a protective factor protects a kid from ending up in problem behaviors. And so we want as many of those to be as high as possible. But our data allows us to figure out which 3 are too low that we really need to bring up. So problem behaviors includes everything from teen pregnancy, drug use, alcohol use, suicide, depression, antisocial behavior, and violence. And all of these factors are affected by the risk and protective factors. So in Erie, when we ran all that data, one of the top lacking protective factors in Erie County is religiosity. And religiosity is the social science term for participating in an organized religion 1 or more hours a week. So it's just a neutral term that means any organized religion and participation in it on a weekly basis. So I understand that some of you out there are thinking, well, we're in a culture right now where youth don't participate in religion. We've seen it nationally. We've seen it across the board that younger people are walking away from their faith and from their places of worship. And I get it. But our data is actually compared to the state and the national average. Compared to the nation, compared to the state, compared to the counties around us, Erie County is lower in youth religious participation than any of those. And we've been on a downward trend for multiple years. So when we ran the data and we figured out that religiosity was one of these seriously lacking protective factors. And there is a body, a literal stack of research that sits under my desk that has all verified that participating in an organized religion, kids just do better. They do better across the board. So when that data became evident in Erie County, I want you to know that you should be really, really proud of the leaders working on these projects that they chose to address religiosity as part of the plan for UnifiedErie. Because what you may not realize is that even though we like to say data is hard and fast, a lot of times when you're setting up a plan, you do have a little bit of discretion. Sometimes you look at something and you go, well, can we actually do something about that? And in a lot of other communities where religiosity has shown up, we have found out that most people cross it off and just move down to the next one. And in Erie County, your leaders didn't do that. They said, even if it's hard, even if we don't know how to do it, even if nobody else is doing it, if this is what's going to make a difference in the lives of our kids, then we're going to figure it out. And even if we're the first ones to address it, we're going to make it happen. So back in 2013, when they hired me to start working on this is what I walked into, was this: we know we need to work on it. There's nobody else doing it. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we know it's important. And I have to tell you, I got hired to do this job as the Community Action Plan Coordinator because my passion is communication. My passion is taking data and science and research and trying to communicate it in a meaningful way so that people can identify with it, understand it, and actually change what they're doing because I made it something real that mattered to them. That's my favorite part of my job. But I work in an office with brilliant people. I work in an office with amazing minds, master's degrees, PhDs. They understand data and science and research in ways that I only hope to. And I kind of serve as the translator between these brilliant minds and what I call where I fit, which is normal people. And so I am the brilliant to normal translator on this. And so when we started talking about what are we actually going to do to address religiosity in Erie County, we said, well, let's just start by sharing the data. Let's start by taking the data and sharing it with the people who have the most ability to do something about it, which is the religious leaders. And then once we get them all together and we share it, let's break them up into groups and ask them what they think would work to change this factor in Erie County. So in 2013, we had this religiosity summit. About 100 people came. We had religious leaders from all over Erie County. McLane Church was represented. It was fantastic. And to get ready for that summit, the brilliant minds in my office ran a whole new set of data correlations for me. They said, all right, well, what we'll do is we'll run the data and we'll see which ones really illustrate this the best, and you can use it at the conference. And I said, that'll be great. Just let me know what you find. And I get a phone call at night after work from one of the brilliant minds in my office. And that person says, you are not going to believe what I'm finding out. And as the non-data geek, I'm like, all right, tell me what you're finding out. And she says, I am totally, in her words, geeking out right now. Because the data, when we run it, there's normally some variations. When you correlate something, some of them go one way and some of them go another. But I've run like 30 data sets. And every data set I've run comes back stair-step relationship. That if someone participates in organized religion, they do better, and the less they participate, the more of that problem behavior is present. So in every data set she ran, there's this stair-step relationship. Professionally, that was pretty radical that all of this data was building the same case. And so this became a huge topic of conversation in my office. We're like, oh my word, we don't even have to pick what we're going to use. They all say the same thing. So then we started talking about what is going to resonate the most and how do we really illustrate some of the things that are going to influence someone to change. So let me share some of this data with you. So religiosity, which I was telling you, off this chart, it's already been on a downward trend. But right here, you can see that back in 2009, we were very close to the state average. But when you get to 2011, we dropped significantly. We're well below the state average. We're below the national average. Now, since 2011, we've started to move back up, which is great, but we're still below the state average and the national average for youth participating in religion. Our goal with this project is that when this survey is taken again in 2015, that we see this not only continuing to move up, but that we exceed the state and national average. We want us to be exceptionally healthy here in Erie County in this category. So this is one of my favorite data charts on this. I just thought this was extremely telling because I don't know that people often correlate grades with religious participation. I mean, you know and I know that religious organizations, for the most part, are open doors, anybody can come. So I honestly expected that grades would be pretty consistent, whether they come or don't come, that across the board, there would be about an equal dispersion of A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. That's not what we found. We found that if they attend once a week or more, the majority of those kids are in the A's and B's category. I mean, look at that. The majority get A's and B's. You get in the rarely attends, which is the once in a while, a few times a year. It's a little more spread out. You get in the never attends, and look how many of those are in the C's, D's, and F's. If 1 hour a week puts a kid in this category rather than this category, that seems like a pretty worthwhile expenditure of an hour. But there's more. Relationship between level of religious activity and depression. Each one of these, whether they've considered suicide, whether they report being sad or depressed most days, or all in all are inclined to think that I'm a failure. The stair-step relationship, the more they go, the lower they report having considered suicide. The less they go, the more likely they've considered suicide. And not by 1 or 2%, not by 3 or 4%. 39.5% versus 19.6%. We're talking almost 20 percentage points different between never attend and attend weekly. Same thing for sad or depressed most days. Same thing for all in all inclined to think that I'm a failure. And I'm going to speak from my mom hat for a minute because every time I see that chart, it makes me want to cry. It breaks my heart. Because as a mom, what wouldn't I do to help my kids be successful in life? What wouldn't I do to prevent them from taking their own life, from being depressed, from thinking overall, considering everything, I'm basically a failure? If 1 hour a week takes my kid from 20% chance of that being true to 40% chance of that being true, I'm going to choose the 20%. I'm going to choose to spend that 1 hour a week because I want every possibility in our corner that my kids don't struggle like that. And if this is one of those factors that could make a difference, then I'm here. It's a priority because they matter. And I know they matter to you too. If you're a parent, what part of our world have we not been willing to rearrange for our kids? There's another chart that I want to share. Less chart, more illustration. But as part of our summit, one of the feedback that we got was that religious leaders said, we really want to know more about their story. So you're telling us they don't attend, but did they used to? Do they want to? Do their parents go and they don't take them? Did their grandparents go, but their parents never went? What's the story on the kids in Erie County? And so we conducted a youth religiosity survey in 2014. It's not as large of a sample as the Pennsylvania Youth Survey that all the other data came from that I'm sharing with you, but it was still a valid sample for Erie County and covered a broad range of groups and people and backgrounds. And we asked kids these kinds of questions. Kids were between the ages of 13 and 18, and if they said no, they do not attend, we asked them if they used to. And if they used to, we asked them when they stopped going. And the vast majority said they stopped going between the ages of 10 and 12. Now, hard data says this is when they stopped going. We didn't ask why, so I can't speak in my professional capacity about why. But as a mom, I'm going to ask you if you've had the same story I've had, because my little 9-year-old is about to turn 10, and our life got a whole lot busier in the last year. She joined cheerleading, and she joined basketball, and she wants to do taekwondo, and we're trying to run a taxi service while being parents, and we're going from place to place and practice to games and all of these things. And sometimes on Sunday morning, I am so tired. This is not always my first thought of where I want to be. And I just wonder how many of us reach that 10 to 12-year-old age and decide it's not a priority anymore because our family's too busy. I don't know. Data doesn't say why. It just says that that's the age they stop going. And so I guess part of me is asking, where are you at? Where are you at with your kids or your grandkids or the people you have access to? Do you know somebody at that age that is approaching that window that might be choosing not to come anymore? Is there a way you could help pull them in, keep them here, bring them back? Because the data says that they're so much less likely to suffer and deal with these things like grades, suicide, depression, failure, teen pregnancy, drug use, alcohol use, violence. 1 hour a week. Just an hour participating. Science says it makes a difference. And I would encourage you to really think about what the data has said. And even if you're not sure what you believe, you're not sure where you fit, I'd start checking it out. Because the data says it's really, really good for your kids. And if that alone is enough reason for you to start investigating it, I would love for that to be a reason. I am passionate about this topic. I'm passionate about this project. In my professional hat with UnifiedErie, I love that we're basing our decisions on data and research and strategies that have worked other places. And I'm excited to work with so many people in our community on it. I actually believe this is going to work. I believe the overall plan that we've embarked on is going to make a difference in Erie County. And that 10 years from now, it's going to look different than it looks when we started. And I'm excited that I get to be a part of it. Sometimes people ask me, how can I be a part of it? And it's interesting because you could certainly join one of my committees and come do the formal work. But a lot of what needs to be done for UnifiedErie to be effective, for the prevention, the community action plan to be effective, for the outcomes for our kids to be effective, It's personal. It takes place in our homes. It's about making it a priority, an hour a week, to participate in an organized religion. It's about getting involved in our neighborhood and knowing who our neighbors are and helping a grassroots effort to make our neighborhoods healthier and safer. It's about working on the issues in our family. If we have conflict, if we have needs, seeking out help to make it a healthier, better family environment for the kids that are exposed to it. So if you're sitting there right now going, what can I do? How can I get involved? Figure out what you can do in those categories to change your home, change your neighborhood, and eventually change Erie County and our community.